You guys, instead of microing your divisions, you like to make what we refer to as the infantry that does everything template. So in the old days, people used to obsess and idolize the Supermarine division or Space Marine division. And it would usually consist of Marines. Sometimes it would consist of mechanized. Sometimes it would consist of heavy tanks, blah, blah, blah. Regardless, it doesn't. Everyone had their own little definition about what it ever was. People wanted this special tank division that basically did everything. I know a lot of people seem to get really uptight about this, and I'm going to address that immediately. The Space Marine that everyone used to talk about didn't always have all Marines. I know that sounds really strange. Everyone had their own little special definition about what a Space Marine consists of. But it generally was a slow-moving division that had good fighting capabilities over rivers and all land. You could basically make your whole army based upon it. Something like this usually. They would always go for 40 width though, because that used to be the old meta. But it was something like this. It was something that had high armor, high breakthrough, lots of soft attack, and lots of attack potential. You could replace the mechanized with Marines, for instance. That used to be a good one because that way you get the actual Marines in the Space Marines. Once again, this is pretty close to what a Space Marine template would be as well. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about Space Marines. I'm here to talk about divisions that do everything. One thing I've noticed in my Discord is everyone posts templates of the classic division that does everything. So just to explain, what's the opposite of a division that does everything? The classic example is something like this. This is a division that holds the front line. You can mass produce these because they're fairly cheap, and you'd put like maybe 48 of them, 72 of them across the front line just to hold the front line. These guys don't attack. They just dig in, they build entrenchment and go from there. You could add engineers onto these too. That would be a very worthy addition. Also, support AA would be pretty good because it's got some piercing capabilities as well as some anti-air. This is a really, really decent hold the front line infantry division. So there you go, your defensive front line infantry. Then you've got a tank division. As long as the breakthrough's good, the armor's good, and even if you feel like it, you want some speed, you can go some speed as well. But overall, a tank division. Basically, it punches in the front line, it makes breakthroughs, and it makes encirclements. Your micro division, basically. Third division you'd make is your garrison template. I've made a dedicated video to that. You can go watch that if you want. Most cases, one horse battalion is usually the meta for that. You can go into armored cars if you wanted to. There's also a light tank meta for that as well if you really cared enough about it. But in all fairness, this does the job 9 times out of 10 anyway. And then the fourth division would be a specific defensive division. You'd usually make this really big so it fills the combat width. Specifically, you could, if you're playing as Turkey, you can make a specific one that fits in this area. So therefore, it would hold the front line. And you could make a few of those. These consist of, once again, defensive. Once again, you'd focus a little bit more on anti-tank capabilities because it'd have to hold the front line and deny tanks from moving forward. And generally, it'd be a very big division to hold the front line. Once again, it's more of an MP kind of thing. You'd put these to try and counter enemy tank divisions in certain locations and build entrenchment on front lines. It's a bit of a niche one, this one. In most single player games, you won't have enough XP to make this defensive style template, this big defensive template. But overall, you get the gist of it. That's kind of what it is. I suppose if you're playing an MP game, let's say someone was a smart, good Poland player, and you saw that they had some really strong tank divisions here, you'd position your defensive infantry on this front line. You'd make a dedicated army and you'd put it here to defend the front line, and therefore you deny the tanks from pushing forward and build entrenchment. In all fairness, in most MP games, you don't usually see defensive infantry-based divisions. You usually see tanks encircling tanks in most cases. But here's an example. You basically got a multi-combined arms army there consisting of 4 different specific templates used for specific roles. So what I'm saying right now, people seem to prefer the infantry that does everything template, and they want to hear the best template. So let's have a look at my Discord right now. Let's look at some of the templates people have submitted. Okay, this is kind of a division that does everything template. We have a little bit of armor, AA, we've got air attack, we've got flame attack. It's got a little bit of it. It tries to basically do everything. In all fairness, to make this the perfect multi-purpose infantry template, you would have an AT on there as well. But I think that justifies my point. Do you want me to show you the ultimate division that does everything template? Because you guys are desperate to find out a division that you can battle plan with, let them attack the front line, and basically walk away from your computer and let it do its own thing. So first of all, you need light tank recon. No doubt about it. It's going to add you loads of armor onto division. We can adjust that by modifying and making our own tank in the tank designer. You need support AA. You need some anti-air ability, but it also gives you a healthy amount of piercing as well. The 7-2, guys, is not dead. It is not dead. This division needs lots of soft attack to make breakthroughs. Fortunately, soft attack also works really effectively on the defensive as well. So this division will work great. If you're battle planning, you are going to need maintenance companies. The reason is it gives you a bonus to reliability, so you'll bleed less equipment, and it also means you'll capture enemy equipment, meaning that you'll not have to produce as much equipment to replace your existing equipment. The main equipment that you're going to burn when you're battle planning is artillery as well as infantry equipment. You will burn through at lightning speed, so it's important to have maintenance companies on to prevent those losses. When it comes to invading certain parts of the world, this one is optional. If you're doing a Barbarossa and you start to break into Siberia, you need logistics companies. There's no doubt about it. In most cases in Europe, North America, even parts of Africa and the Middle East, you're totally okay to not have logistics. But if you're starting to push into these these parts of Siberia here, you're desperately going to need logistics companies. Piercing and air attack is really, really important. This means you don't need air support. You're basically making a division that you don't need air support at all. You will need some planes for interception to prevent people bombing you. Last but not least, it is the flame tank. Ignore the combat width because I've got everything researched, so the numbers are all a bit weird. But for the most part, if you go in for around about 30 combat width with 2 artillery battalions and 1 AA battalion and the rest of it infantry, it's required to have the light tank recon for the armor. We'll adjust the tank in a second. The AA is essential for the air attack. Maintenance is essential because you're battle planning, you're going to lose a lot of equipment. Logistics is optional depending on where you're fighting in the world. Flame tank is required for the extra attack modifiers, which are boss. So boss. And the final thing that's super, super important, really important, is when you put all your troops on the front line, you need to make sure that your field marshal, see this button here, motorized priority, you change that to 3 motorized. And therefore, all this is lovely light blue supply. Be aware this will burn through absolutely crap tons of your motorized, so just be aware of that. Here's the big shocker for you guys. Some of you focusing way too heavily on combat width. I need to stop doing it. Anything between 10 combat width and 45 works. Sure, the smaller ones are more intensive for equipment losses. Sure, the big ones suffer from more attrition and they're not as flexible. But for the most part, anything between 10 width and 45 kind of works. And I wouldn't focus too heavily on what the combat width number is. You basically pay for what you can afford. Make sure they're trained to level 3. Make sure they've got a general and a field marshal attached. Make sure they're maxed out on supply. And baby, here we go. To get the maximum of this kind of template, you would need to go down the superior firepower path because you need integrated support as well as shock and awe for the maximum amount of soft attack and damage. If you want to maximize the tank division for this, you want to go for the best possible light tank that you can afford. The one you would go for would be the most cost effective, which would be the improved autocannon, 3-man turret for maximum amount of breakthrough. You want to go for the interweaved road wheels because reliability doesn't matter. You want welded armor for maximum armor. I guess you could go for the gasoline engine, or if you want to make the production cost super high, you could go for petrol electric, I guess. You want 9 armor for production costs and then enough speed so it can actually move. Essential upgrades is sloped armor. You want armor skirts, the extra ammunition storage to fill it out. So this is maximizing the cost effectiveness. You don't care about reliability. You don't care about speed. Soft attack's decent. Piercing's decent. Hardness is awesome. Armor is fantastic. Breakthrough is fantastic. This is a tank that basically makes the perfect recon. So now if you look at the division we've created, the armor now on this tank now is 16, which is fantastic. Anything above 10, you're kicking ass. If it gets to the point late game that you're producing too many recons, you can always add on a light tank battalion as well. That's going to give you a juicy amount of breakthrough and a juicy, 82 extra breakthrough and a little amount of armor. Don't just make this initially. What you want to do is work up to it. That's what most players in HOI4 get wrong, okay? You don't just make your dream division immediately. You basically make a raw version of it and then you start adding to it. So you probably don't start with engineer 2, so you don't want to have flame tanks, okay? You're not going to start with logistics because logistics is specific to what area you're attacking. You probably might not even have maintenance either, but it probably recommends to get it early on, and therefore you won't need that extra battalion of AA. So this is the raw version. This is the naked version. And then over time, depending on what you research and what you go for, you can start adding to it. So as the time progresses on and you get more production costs, you start to add them on. But don't forget, when you add production costs on, hover over it and see if you've got the production for it before you hit save, because you don't want to add something on you can't add to your armies, because you're going to suffer from a strength penalty in battle, and you'll suffer from negative penalties because the division isn't 100% strength. Be aware of that. You're always focusing on breakthrough and you're always focusing on armor, and there aren't really any upgrades that give you enough of that. I guess auto load it, but you're making the cost so much more expensive by adding an auto loader. Stabilizer is actually a worthy upgrade late game because you're getting loads of breakthrough for that. Once again, it makes the cost go up astronomically. Once again, some of these upgrades are good, but they're not cost effective. Try and understand the difference between those two things. Sometimes you can gain 1,000 soft attack, but if it allows 100 production cost for 100 soft attack, it's just not worth it. Because remember, you have to think about cost effectiveness. The secondary guns are absolute trash. I guess there may be an argument here for the auto loader because they're the late game guns you add on, but look at the production cost now, 14 production cost. The truth is you get an extra 10 breakthrough for that. It's not even that much. I think it means if you hit the 400 tanks into a region because of the supply the combat with, then you're better off with a more expensive tank, even if it's not cost effective. Whenever you're going to be in that situation though, I could understand in a situation if it's one province between Maginot and France, like in Hearts of Iron 2, and there would be a maximum amount of troops you could put in between the Maginot and the front line for Germany. I could understand that. But now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 7. So the truth is, when it comes down to it, you don't start to increase the production cost and the size of your divisions late game. What you tend to do is you tend to work towards the supply. So in that case, you'll build maximum railways. You'll have supply convoys attached on. You'll have level 4 logistics teams. So you'll be keeping the supply down as you're making the division larger and larger anyway. The Xinjiang Afghanistan border, get out. Yeah, guys, I'm limited by combat width here. I can't get through. Pushing through mountains. It's freezing, very cold, and snow. Nothing's getting through here, lads. Nothing's getting through. Everyone who loved this video also loved this one. Give it a click.